Fear of failure can be paralyzing. Being afraid of making a mistake, making a mess out of ourselves, being ridiculed, or maybe even hurting ourselves can stop us from even trying. But is fear of failure really a necessary fear? Us humans are still hardwired as Stone Age people. And as you know, the Stone Age is very different from the life that we live today, where the number one priority was to survive. Today we don't really have to try that hard in order to survive. Back in the day, that meant that we had to play it safe and not take any risks unless we absolutely had to. Being part of the tribe was really important for our survival because, frankly, people didn't survive long on their own, which meant that you couldn't risk saying something that could get you kicked out of the tribe. And these emotions are still with us today, which makes it hard for us to say something wrong in front of others or makes us afraid of looking ridiculous in front of others. And definitely we do not want to make people angry because that could be severely life-threatening. A long time ago, being able to move was one of the most important things that you could do because you needed to gather food and be able to run from dangers to keep yourself alive. So we are basically hardwired to stay away from anything that might hurt us, like heights or snakes or spiders or thunder. And as you can hear, all of those things are things that people might be afraid of today, while it might not make logical sense. At least not in Sweden, we don't have any dangerous snakes or spiders at all. And these fears helped us to not get sick or injure ourselves back in the Stone Age, but they might seem a little bit irrational today. So yeah, fear of failure is necessary, but not so much in the time that we live in today. Today, the consequences of failing are probably not that severe. Yeah, we could be made fun of, or someone could take a stupid picture and put it on social media, or you could lose a lot of money. But in most cases, you wouldn't risk hurting yourself or risk your life. Also, in these times, there's always someone that has done something worse on you that's up on social media. I promise. So for example, doing a presentation and stumble on your words, it's not that big of a thing looking in a bigger perspective. Still, it can be hard to deal with the fear of failure and the consequences of actually failing or making a mistake. So what can we do about it? The simple answer is that you need to rewire your brain of what you see as a failure. Failure can be defined as a lack of success or an inability to meet expectations. In most cases, we let too many small failures take up too much of our lives. We make a simple mistake and then we make it part of our identity and can't really let it go. Yeah, absolutely talking from experience here. Or we might be inexperienced with something, don't know how to do it and completely fail at it, but how are you supposed to do it right if you've never tried it before? And there you have the key. You don't know how to do it yet. You haven't learned yet. I listened to a podcast a couple of weeks ago with Kjell Enhager, who is a Swedish coach and lecturer who have helped thousands of people overcoming their fear of failures and failures. And according to him, the key to everything is to rewire your brain from failing or being a failure to having the mindset of I haven't learned yet. And this is a mindset shift that might actually change our whole lives if we implement it. Instead of viewing your life as a curve where you have successes and failures going up and down in a line that average out to some kind of a trend line that goes slightly upwards. Instead of doing that, you should see your life as a learning curve. Your life isn't made up out of successes and failures. You are only a human trying to navigate life and learning from it. So instead of seeing successes and failures, you should only focus on what you're learning. Because if you're doing this right, you're learning from both your successes and your failures. And while doing that, if you start viewing your life as a learning curve, it should be a line that is going pretty much always steady upwards. And sometimes when you make a failure, it goes a huge way up. But the thing is, as long as you're continuously learning, you're improving in your own life. And when you implement that mindset, a failure is not a failure. The only failure that you can do is to stop learning. That's the only failure in your life, if you stop learning, because then your learning curve doesn't go upwards. Most successful entrepreneurs have started a lot of businesses that have failed before actually making their huge success. And you can't expect to be good at running a business if you haven't tried before. And if you're expecting yourself to be good at everything the first time you try it, you will be living a miserable life where you're continuously disappointing yourself. Because failure and mistakes are a part of life. You can't get away from them. You need to make mistakes in order to learn. Of course, if you mess up with something so badly that it has huge consequences of your life, of course that will be hard, but at least don't make yourself upset over the small mistakes that you do in life. Try to take the "I haven't learned yet" mindset to heart and implement it in your own life. If you mess up with something badly at work, well, you haven't learned that yet, so how the hell are you supposed to be able to do it? Or if you ask a person something and they make you look like an idiot for not knowing that, how are you supposed to know if you haven't learned that yet? That's just silly. But when you do fail and have a hard time viewing it as a learning experience, or it might have severe impacts on your life, what do you do then? Well, it's a simple process really. The first step is that you need to acknowledge your mistakes. Don't try to hide from it, don't try to stay away from it. Acknowledge that it's happened and that it has an impact on you. The mistake that you did, the failures that you have done, acknowledge them. And the second thing to that is that you need to take responsibility for them. The worst thing a person can do regarding failures is to blame their mistakes on others. What you need to do is that you need to take responsibility for your problems. For example, I was late because the bus driver drove too slowly. Or I failed the project because Carl wasn't handing in his part in time. And yes, both of those cases are impacted by someone else, but in the end, it's still your responsibility to show up to work on time. It's still your responsibility as a project manager to get the project done on time. And it's you who have to live with the consequences of that. So take your responsibility for waking up on time, make sure to reminding the other person of what they need to do, and take your responsibility connected to the mistakes and failures that you do. Stand up and own it. The third thing is to learn from your failures and do better next time. Just accepting failures or taking responsibility doesn't mean anything if you keep repeating that same mistake. When you do that, any apology basically loses its value. You have to actually learn from your experiences and do something about it. Use the "I haven't learned" mindset and then try to do better next time. Reflect upon what you have learned from doing the failure. Maybe you've learned that Carl isn't to be trusted. He isn't a person you can trust. Well, then learn from that mistake and next time make sure to only include people that you actually can trust, or make sure to follow up hugely on Carl. Use what you have learned and then do better next time. And this fourth part is so important. Don't make the failures a part of your identity. Don't linger on your failures. Sometimes you just have to move on. If you have done the previous steps with acknowledging that the failure has been made, taking responsibility from it, learning from it and doing better, and also if you have hurt someone, apologize. But when you've done that, you have basically done everything that you can do, and there's not really a need to linger on it any more than necessary. It might have been stupid in hindsight, but at that time, you didn't know any better. From now on, you will do better, and you're not the same person that did that mistake. You have learned now, and you're going to do better. So there's no need of making that failure a part of your identity. You need to move on and do better next time. And something that I also need is important to note is that it's okay to feel bad if you have done a mistake. It's a completely valid emotion to feel sad or angry or upset, but as I said, you need to accept the situation for what it is. Acknowledge that you made a mistake, take the responsibility, learn from it and improve until next time and move on. Will you be trying the "I haven't learned yet" mindset? Tell me down in the comments below. If you're interested in learning more about yourself, watch this video about how to give and receive feedback. Have an awesome week and I'll see you in my next video.